You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. This episode of Pizza Quest is brought to you by Central Milling, hand-selected grain, expertly milled for passionate bakers. Central Milling is the farmer, the miller, and the baker working together to preserve American farmland for tomorrow while providing the highest quality flour and grains for the bakers of today. Dating back over 150 years, Central Milling is built on generations of knowledge, and they know that premium flour starts at the source. Employee-owned, Central Milling works directly with their farmers to sustainably grow grains that have exceptional flavor, nutrient content, color, and baking performance, which results in one of the largest selections of premium specialty flour and grains in the country. Hand-selected for the highest baking qualities, milled, cracked, or blended slowly to minimize heat generation, then bake-tested for performance. Learn more about Central Milling and their products at centralmilling.com. Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt. Welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm coming to you from the Northeast Pizza and Pasta and Artisan Baking Expo. It's early October. I'm here on the floor of the convention talking to some really interesting people, and one of them is Anthony Berghela, who is competing. You just finished competing already, right?
Yes, I competed.
He's competing in the pizza competition, which is some serious bragging rights, maybe some prize money, and all sorts of other benefits for winning this competition.
Absolutely.
So, Anthony, you're from Rome. Is it Romo's Pizza?
Romo's
You're
Pizza,
in upstate New York.
Yep.
Near Albany.
Yep, right outside Albany.
Tell us a little bit about Romo's, about yourself, and what did you make today in the competition?
Yeah, so Romo's it will be celebrating 14 years this November. We started back in 2009. It was kind of just like a shot in the dark. I had never been in the pizza business. I bought a pizzeria that was, going under, and I took a shot. Luckily for me, it was a slow pizzeria, so I was able to learn the business, figure things out. A few of my uncles came in and helped me, a little bit when they could.
But why did you choose pizza? And was it part of your family heritage or what?
So I chose pizza because I thought it was going to be easy. But I chose
any business mistake number one. It's never easy.
Yes, I chose it mainly because I remember my uncles doing it when I was a kid, being in there, just enjoy watching them, obviously eating the pizzas. When I was in college, I lived right next door to a pizzeria that two of my cousins worked at the time, so I spent a lot of time there, and it just brought me back to, remembering things that I liked, and I wanted to, make a change, with the direction of my life, and, I thought, why not pizza?
When did you start? Well, we'll talk more about Romo's in a second because I want to hear what you're doing there. But when did you start competing in these competitions?
So I started competing, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. The first time I ever competed was when they brought the Caputo Cup back to Atlantic City. That was the first time I had ever competed. I believe it was
just a few years ago,
18 or 19, somewhere in there.
Right before the pandemic.
Yeah, that was the first time I had ever competed.
I remember when that was happening here. The Caputo Cup is one of the competitions.
Yeah.
This year's competition here is not a Caputo Cup.
Right.
It's a different. It's part of the.
Yeah, they changed it up a little bit. But yeah, that was my first time ever competing. Didn't do the greatest. I was very nervous. I had never been in that type of atmosphere where I've got people watching me like that. And
you're dealing with so many unknown factors like ovens that don't work.
Yeah, absolutely. You're in everything around you is different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first one. And then, I started doing Vegas and been doing this one the last couple times they've had it. Competed in Parma back in 2019, and I just won Caputo Cup in Italy this June.
That's why you're, kind of why you're here, because your learning curve is pretty fast, actually.
Yeah.
Just a few years to go from your first one to where you got your butt kicked by everybody else until suddenly you're no longer the kick butt guy. You're the guy kicking butt.
Yeah.
So what happened? Tell us a little bit about Parma.
Parma was so far the most intense atmosphere as far as competitions that I've ever been in. As far as the show itself, it's the biggest. You think you're in like a football stadium. They got big screens everywhere, cameras everywhere.
So it makes this one here that we're at today look like a little
like
blink.
peanuts. Yeah. but yeah, that was the most intense that I had ever been in. Again, I did a style that I wasn't used to. I was kind of late signing up, so everything was kind of filled up, and Paula was open. And when I signed up for it, I thought it was a pan.
Paula meaning what?
Like Roman style pizza
style,
and Paula.
okay.
I still thought it was like pan pizza, so I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with this. And then they were like, no, you got to like stretch it, put it on the peel, put it in, bake it. And I was like,
you bake it directly on the hearth. It's not in a pan. Yeah.
So I had about 2 weeks of preparation for that. Yeah, that was another competition that like didn't go my way. You know, I didn't do terrible, but I didn't perform the way that I wanted. But for being the first time in that type of atmosphere, you know, I came home like, okay, you know.
Yeah, you're taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty much what I've done with all the competitions. You know, you see what other people are doing. You see what type of pizzas are winning. You know, are they like really thin and crispy? Are they a little bit doughier? Are they, you know, are they looking for like the crumb structure?
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of followed that pattern, and, you know, I found myself getting, you know, higher and higher. I wasn't getting that 1, 2, 3 spot like you would like, but finishing like 5, 6,
Yeah.
you're right there.
Yeah, the podium is so close, but
Yeah,
still not
and
there.
everything, and all these competitions too. Like the difference between first and 10th sometimes is like less than a point.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, you know, you gotta get lucky a little bit. But you know, everybody's good here, so it's so close. But you know, 2 years ago, you know, I was getting close, but I'm like, all right, how can I elevate it and get closer? So I completely changed like what I was doing, what everybody else was competing with. So I wanted to do things that I was remembered for. So last year, here I did this style of pizza that I've been working on. I call it like a New Haven, New York hybrid pizza.
Uh-huh.
The dough is very like New Haven-ish, you know, like a charred bottom.
Yeah.
You know, the leoparding charred around the crust. But
baked at high temperatures.
Yes, very high temperature. But I built the pizza differently. New Haven pizza traditionally is still built like any other dough, sauce, cheese, toppings. When I was doing it, I didn't love like the visual look of the final result. So I'm just, you know, kept practicing, but like, okay, well, how can I make it better? And then, you know, I thought about like my favorite pizzerias, you know, like the ones like directly in the city, like the more historical ones, like the Lombardis, the Grimaldis, the Totonos, John's of Bleecker, things like that. And they do cheese first, finish it with the sauce. So I'm like, let me see how that looks. And visually, it looks amazing. And I'm like, you know what, I'm doing this.
It's kind of like an upside down pizza in a way.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. So I started doing that, did it here last year, came in second place, went to Vegas, did it again, changed up the toppings that I did, came in first in the region and third overall. And then Naples a few months later.
That's the one you.
That's the one that.
So it was in Naples that you won the Caputo Cup.
Naples, I won the Caputo Cup. Yeah, yeah.
What did that feel like?
It was
surreal.
It was because you know, I felt really good about the pizza. I didn't think there was really anything I could have done better, but there's so many good people in there. Like when you go to these competitions, you kind of like you do your research, you see who's competing. You're like, you got to watch out for this person, that person. So I did the same thing in Naples. I saw who I was going up against, and when they started, you know, naming people, I'm like, I didn't think that guy was going to get third, and then the second place won, and then I was like, I didn't see him coming here. I'm like, did I even place?
Yeah.
And then the difference between my score and second place was like a huge gap. So when they said the score, everybody was like, whoa.
What? Yeah.
And then they said my name, and I was like, oh, shit.
So from the judging standpoint, you ran away with it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So clearly your learning curve was steep and fast, and you were using what you learned. Every loss for you was a step towards winning.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So going back to Romo's then, what kind of pizza do you make there?
So Romo's, I would say it's more of like a New York style, slightly different, I guess. You know, we also did a pan pizza. We did that. I still do that today, but as I grew in that spot, the spot that I started in was tiny, like an 800 square foot. Walked in, you were 5 feet from the counter, you know, had a couple slices out to eat, you know, then take your pizza and go. There was no sit down.
Yeah.
About a year or so later, The lady next door to me moved out, so we took her spot. We opened up a little doorway, said we got to get some tables in here so people will come and have lunch. We did that, but we were like stuck in a corner, like in the plaza. Nobody could see us. Like you drove by for years. Like I moved after 3 years. I moved to a storefront, and when I did that, people were coming in. We're like, well, we're so glad there's a new pizza place in town. I'm like, I've been back there for 3 years.
Right,
you just didn't know I was there.
Where were you when I needed you?
Yeah. So after 3 years, we moved up to a storefront. It wasn't much bigger. It went from like 800 to 1,000 square feet.
Location.
But it was the location.
Yeah.
And again, we started, just from there, like really took off. So, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years later, I'm like, I need more oven space, but I don't have room. I need more coolers, but I don't have room. What can I do? Probably 6 months prior to that point, the biggest store in that plaza was about 4,300 square feet. It was a beverage center. He had moved out. So we had talked about, well, let's move in here. And then we're like, but that's a huge spot to do a takeout pizza place. So I was like, all right, well, let's make it different. Let's do takeout, but let's also offer like sit down.
Yeah.
So when we did that, I wanted to do something that was different to the area, something that would bring people. So I went out to California and took Tony Gemignani's pizza class. I did that with him and Laura, and learned the Sicilians, the Detroits, the grandmas, things like that. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take those. I'm going to bring them back to Albany because nobody knows what these are. And I'm just going to try to blow people's minds with them.
So basically you went back to school.
Yep.
You're now part of the World Pizza Champions team, right?
Yep.
So you're part of the Tony Gemignani lineage.
Yes, yeah.
Which is we've talked about that many times on Pizza Quest.
Yep.
Laura Meyer, you mentioned, who's one of the was his right hand gal for so long, and now has her own place.
Yep.
And so suddenly you stepped from being an independent.
Yeah.
And prior to going to the school, had you competed, or was that?
No, I had never competed. I didn't really know anything about the world.
That was a launching pad for you to get to the next level.
Yeah. It was. So really what happened was, I think Tony took a liking to me at the school. He saw that I had some talent, and we had kept in touch.
For him, that the school was kind of a recruiting ground.
Yeah,
so it was his farm system.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we had kept in touch, and maybe about a year or two later, he sent me an email and was like, hey, I'd love for you to come to Pizza Expo in Vegas and help me with my demos and stuff like that.
The call you're waiting for, really.
And then at that point, I got to see everything that, like, was in the background that you never knew, got to pick up ideas that I wasn't seeing or that, I might not have learned at his school, got to meet other people. So, I was learning from them. And, it was kind of at that point where, I fell in love, like, with everything that the shows and the competitions have to offer.
That's awesome. So suddenly you kind of went from the great, what's it called in baseball, like the single A, and then you're triple A, and then all of a sudden you're in the major leagues.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you go to compete at a place like whether it's Parma or Naples, do you go as part of a team? Do you go as an individual? How does that all work?
I mean, like these competitions, we kind of go as individuals, and we all meet up, and we spend time together and stuff like that. The first time we had ever done Parma, or I had ever done Parma, a lot of us we all paired up, and we made it, instead of just going for the competition, we made it like a trip. We visited, multiple towns. We did a gelato class. We went to the Parmesan Reggiano factories.
Awesome.
What else did we do? We did.
So it was like a learning expedition.
Yeah, we went truffle hunting. We saw the dogs. Nice. We did a lot of really cool stuff.
And this was all as part of the team.
Yeah, wow. We did it all together.
That's
as
a nice
team.
benefit of being on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we stayed in the same hotels, did the dinners together. The team, we're a very tight knit group, and we like spending time with each other. We like seeing each other here.
Yeah.
But I mean, even outside of these shows, a lot of us are friends. We keep in touch.
Plus,
like
being
that.
on the team, you're kind of pushing each other constantly to new
yeah,
levels.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us about the pizza that you entered here today.
So here today, I did two today. I did a gluten-free. I did that. This is the first.
Is there a whole category, gluten-free
Yeah,
category?
gluten-free. They actually brought it back. They hadn't had it here or in Vegas for the past few years, but this year they brought it back. They allowed people to compete in two categories. Normally you can only do one. This year they said, we'll let you do two because they changed it up. They wanted it to be a little different than how Vegas was. So I did the gluten-free. It was a pizza. It was actually the first pizza topping wise that I had ever competed in Vegas. It was a pan pizza. Cheese sauce. I used sliced soppressata, pepperoni, arugula, a little Parmesan Reggiano, and I finished it with a little bit of Mike's Hot Honey just to give it a little sweetness and a little heat.
What did you finish this with?
So this was the one that I did my first time ever competing in Vegas.
Yeah.
I did this, but in pan, not gluten-free.
Right. But what was the topping? You said you finished it with one other thing?
Mike's Hot Honey.
Oh, Mike's Hot Honey.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So this year, I didn't really prepare too much for the gluten-free because it was kind of a last-minute thing where they said, hey, you guys
But let me
can
ask you
do
about
it.
the gluten-free. Are you allowed to, do you have to make your own crust, or are you allowed to use a commercial
You
crust?
have to make your own.
You have to make your own crust.
Yeah, I
Okay.
started making my own probably 5 or 6 years ago when we found out that my daughter was celiac. So,
there you
I
go.
was kind of like,
So many people
I
get
don't
launched
want
on it.
to, give her shells,
Yeah.
for the rest of her life. So
Yeah.
let me try to do something good. And, Tony got me in touch with somebody over at Caputo, and, he helped me out with
Caputo has a nice gluten-free
yeah,
blend.
he helped me out with the flour and the recipes, and then through there, I kind of some of the guys on the team like Derek Sanchez, gave me little tips and things like that to how to improve it. So I just kind of been elevating it a little bit.
When you do your gluten-free, do you have to par bake it first?
Yeah, we do. I do a par bake. I let it's almost like a double proof kind of. I let it proof, then I pan it out, let it proof again, and then I par bake it. And then just finish it as I go. I do a lot of them at the shop. People really take a liking to it. Locally, we've been voted best gluten free for the last couple of years now. So,
What kind of percentage of your business is gluten free?
It's not a ton, but when people say, "Oh, you sell a lot of gluten frees," I might sell 20 a day, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's a lot."
But that allows families that have one member who can't eat
Right.
the regular.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have a dedicated oven for that, do you?
So, some people would prefer that you do, but just because of what I have to work with, I don't. So, we obviously take care of the area that the pizza is being made on. They're par baked in a pan. They're cooked in a pan. So we try to keep it off the stone. We don't ever put it, from pan to stone.
Yeah. But you basically have to warn the customers.
Yes,
that,
we tell them that the product itself is gluten free, but the environment is not. So it's kind of
so they take their chances, but it's on them.
Right.
And which means that the people with the highest level of sensitivity are still not going to be able to do it.
Right.
But a lot of people can
Right.
then partake.
Yeah. Yes. Some people, but believe it or not, we get a lot of it where some people will say, just make it, put it together, don't cook it, put it in a box. I'll do it when I get home.
That's
So,
good. Yeah,
we use trays that they can put right in their oven.
That's a great
and
idea.
we try to, the ones that can't have them in the shop, we try
So
to.
you made a gluten-free today. Of course,
Yep.
we don't know the results yet.
Right.
We won't know that probably till tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
So we don't know where you stand with it.
Right.
But were there a lot of people competing in that category?
Yeah, there was. And I was surprised because a lot of people that are in it are well-known guys too,
Yeah.
and females. They like other world champions, like people that have won a lot
People
of
from
things.
the
So
teams,
the
yeah,
competition
yeah.
for it is pretty stiff. And then the other one that I did was the best cheese pizza. I pretty much did a variation of the pizza that I won in Naples with.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. The only thing that I really changed a little bit was I didn't add the buffalo mozzarella to it just because I didn't know if it would hurt or help it. Just because I didn't know if people were the judges would think that it was too fancy or like not your typical cheese slice that you would get. These are hard because you don't know how they're judging
So
it.
when you say it's the cheese category, does that mean no sauce at all? Or
No,
can it be cheese and sauce?
you have to have sauce and cheese only, no
so it's
toppings.
basically like a pizza slice.
Yes. And for me, I kind of like this competition because in some of the other ones, you can hide behind things. You can hide behind a specialty sauce, or you can hide behind the toppings that you're using that will give you, a different flavor. For this, it's really like your dough has to stand out and your sauce has to stand out. So,
And the judges are probably looking for the right perfect balance of
Right.
between crust and cheese and sauce.
Yep.
And are most of the people entering essentially a mozzarella cheese and sauce pizza?
Yeah, everybody that's doing it has to do the sauce cheese. You can do any type. You can use 20 different cheeses if you wanted.
But they're not putting pepperoni and stuff on it.
No, you can't put pepperoni on it. You can do any style of pizza as well. So you're seeing
could be Detroit.
You're seeing Detroit, Sicilians, all those. As long as it's just cheese, that's fine.
Interesting. So you're competing cross category in that sense.
Yeah.
So you could be up against a Detroit or a Roman or whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So you try to be traditional. You try to do. It's just tough because you don't know. Do they want you to be traditional? Do they want you to be a little creative? So you don't know. So you always find out. You see who wins, and then you're like, what do they do?
So what do they call this competition here? Is it called the International?
It's just the Northeast Pizza and Pasta Showdown.
Championship.
Yeah.
So and does it qualify you if you win this? Does it get points towards or qualifications towards a larger event?
Yeah. So if this is similar to Vegas as far as if you win it, you are considered a world champion.
And you're automatically eligible for something that you might not have been.
Yeah, I mean, you'll trophies, prizes, money prizes. The things that come from winning these things are getting to sit here and talk with you.
Yeah.
Sponsors.
You're on the map.
Sponsors looking to talk to you, things like that.
Sponsors is another thing. Yeah. Because I know on your jacket you've got your decal from the World Pizza Champions.
Yep.
You've got.
Roma Foods is one of our the team sponsors, along with Pizza Master.
So everyone on the team has that sponsor decal.
Yeah.
And Performance Food Service.
Yep.
You're like a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Everybody's got the team ones on them. A lot of the guys and the females also have their own sponsors.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
Products
you're allowed to go out and get.
Oh yeah. You're allowed to really anybody you work
if
with.
If you're Tony Gemignani, you got more decals than jacket.
Yeah.
So that's a goal.
He's from head to toe.
When I see you next time, you're going to have 6 more decals.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So this competition phase or world that you've entered into has been good for you.
Absolutely.
And good for business too.
Yeah. It definitely changes. It changes business a lot. Last year again, Atlantic City coming in second. Second is still great, especially when you're here, competing against the type of people that you are.
Well, normally, that if you came in first, second, or third, that you could have easily been first.
Absolutely,
depending on the day and the judges.
Yeah. Especially when people, see the scores, or you can tell, wow, what was the difference? What was that 0.3 difference?
The difference was that judge that you might have been maybe the last pizza of the day, and everyone's burned out.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of factors that go into that, but. Yeah, I mean, it does help locally a lot. People that are already coming to you want to try this new pizza. People that might not be so close to where it's driving distance will travel. When we won in Naples, a week later, we had a family come in, and I didn't know where they were from, and they ate the pizza. They loved it. They were like, "Hey, come take a picture with my family and friends." And I went out there, and they're like, "We drove from Virginia," and I was like, "Virginia?" So that's like a 7-hour drive.
Wow.
And I was like, I was like, how did you hear about it? They're like, it was on the news here. And I was like, really?
Wow.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
That validates a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, you get, it definitely, you get the people that are interested, but again, it's like anything else, people are like, this is the best thing we've ever had. And then you get people that are like, this just won the best pizza in the world,
what's the big deal?
Yeah. So,
well, what you don't want to hear is somebody say, I can make that as good in my home
oven. Yeah.
But you're already past all that because now you've been doing it long enough to know no one has to tell you you're good. You know that you're good at this.
Yeah.
And what do you think makes you good at it?
I think it's just my the drive and the dedication. I'm always trying to improve it. So I don't, when I win or when I get close, my next thought is like, okay, how can I win the next time, or how can I keep winning? So what could I have done differently? What can I improve? What can I change? I'm never really satisfied, and that's like a thing. Everybody at my store, when they found out I was coming here, they're like, "What are you going to do another one for? You just won." I'm like, "Well, there's more to win." So it's like,
it's not over for me yet.
So, but yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was one of the big breakthroughs for you was going to school, going to Tony's school. And what do you think were some of the key things you learned there that ended up changing your game?
It was really knowing what I was doing. I mean, when I got into the business, I didn't know what I was doing. So anybody could have showed me something and I would have been like, that was the right way to do it, because I didn't know how to do it. So going to Tony's school and understanding like what the yeast is doing to your product, what, the fermentation process, how that's helping, the way to store it, how to, mix it properly,
Yeah.
when to put certain things in the dough, all of that, really helped
So
me.
all those things can make a difference when you put it
Absolutely.
in the order of the ingredients.
Yeah, yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
I always wondered what people, what the teachings are on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's just, the dough that we do, our main dough that we call our Romo style pizza, which is the one that my uncles taught me and that we started with. It's kind of it's like a direct method. Everything kind of just gets thrown in and mixed. And then when I learned from Tony, it was kind of put the water in first or the flour. You want to put your starter in at this point,
Yeah.
mix it, put your salt in at this point, put your oil in at this point. If you're doing other things, it's kind of the timing of everything. And I've played around with it. I've taken those techniques that he's given me and used it on my regular style dough, and I thought it like changed it and made the product different. So I'm just like, that doesn't work for this product. So I'm just going to leave this the same because I don't want people to be like, what are you doing? Are you changing it? They love it the way that it is. So
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you don't have to fix it. It's not broken.
So I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to start creating these other styles and perfect them.
You mentioned starters. Do you use pre-ferments or sourdough starters?
I do. I use Poolish in most of my, I call them like my specialty style
Poolish is
pizzas.
a wet starter. Like a sponge. Yeah.
Yep. I use those in the styles that I competed with today, not the gluten-free, but the cheese one that I did. My Detroits, my Sicilians, my grandmas, I do them in all of them. I love the way that it gives the extra flavor and things like that. So
that's interesting. So some people love Bigas, which are the stiffer ones. Some people like the Poolish, but you found the one that works for you.
Yeah. It was one of those things that, I did it. I liked it. I was happy with the product, and, I didn't really find any reason to change it. I've messed around with other things like Bigas and things like that. When I started playing with the Roman style pizza, two different ways that I was doing it. One required a starter like a Poolish, the other one was a Biga style. So I've played with both. Don't necessarily like one over the other, but my preference, just because I was comfortable with it, is the Poolish.
Well, people who are listening they tend to want to kind of like they may be home cooks, but they want to know all the tricks. So when you make your Poolish, can you just talk a little bit about like how many? Do you set an overnight deal? How do you do it?
Yeah, I usually will. It's the ratio is just 1-to-1 of everything. I'll usually try to have it between like 18 and 24 hours. Normally I'll either do it like mid-afternoon or later towards close, and then I'll use it for the dough the next day.
And is it equal amounts water and flour?
Equal amounts, yeah.
By weight.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's pretty classic Poolish.
Yeah. It's pretty standard.
So that's interesting. The funny thing is, as you're talking about it, I came into the writing about pizza and following the pizza community through my work in bread.
Yep.
And I always felt, and I still feel that the crust is like at least 80% of,
Absolutely.
And so it's really a bread product that is then turned into something spectacular. And when back 20 years ago when I first started writing about it, very few pizza makers did anything other than the direct method. Right. No starters, no pre-ferments. And then the artisan bread movement had been changed dramatically through the introduction of pre-ferments. And then all of a sudden the pizza people were like, wait, whatever the guys are doing in bread, I want to do it in pizza. Yeah. And so the whole landscape of pizza dough making has changed dramatically in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where, in my area, I was the first one to kind of introduce, Detroit style. The grandma wasn't a popular thing in that area. The Sicilian, the way that I started doing it, wasn't really a thing. And people, like other pizza people, would be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'd put a starter there. What's a starter? I'm like, oh, I'm doing a Poolish. It's like a 24-hour fermentation. It gives, it helps with the flavor and the fermentation and things like that. And they're like, never knew. So, definitely me doing these competitions and placing well, and people in the area, like the coverage that I get from it, it's opening up the eyes of other pizzeria owners because, they're kind of taking notice and doing it as well, which is improving their product and,
So you do a Sicilian now at the restaurant
We
Romo's?
do. Yeah. So I do two kind of versions of them. One is a similar. It's a typical New York thing. New York is not a big fan really of par baking. They like their dough to be, their pan pizzas to be kind of like room temperature. Sauce it, cheese it, get it in to where, I think it's more of like an artisan thing, maybe even like a West Coast kind of thing where like the par baking of your Sicilians is very big now. It holds everything in. You don't get that.
You don't get the gum line.
Yeah, you don't
that's
get the
big thing.
You don't get the gum lines and things like that. It's one of those things where like some people prefer that, some people prefer the other way. It's just a personal preference kind of thing. Yeah.
So one final question before we lose you here. By the way, are you done competing now? Do you get to just enjoy the show?
I'm just
the rest
hanging
of the
out the rest of the day.
That's cool.
Gonna
That's
come
great.
tomorrow,
That's
see
nice.
how we did.
You get your reward now. You get to go around and hang out with your buddies. You know, what I call the your kindred spirits here at the pizza freaks of the world.
Yeah.
But tell me about the Albany pizza scene. Is there this? Could you say that in the region where you are in northern New York State, a particular style that people say, oh, that's Albany style?
Yeah.
Does Albany have a style?
I don't know that they have a style. I mean, believe it or not, there's in one kind of area, I would say within like a 15 to 20 mile radius, you could almost go into any place and be like, that just tasted like the last place that I went to. And a lot of it is from like people bouncing from place to place and, things like that. But, some people have their differences, they do it completely different. My, what I call Romo style is a lot different. As far as the pizza itself, I had never had it prior, but it was one of the things that my uncles taught me, and people love it. We do like a garlic crust on all of our pizzas. So we make like a garlic sauce. And before, we make our pizza, we brush it around the crust.
Before it goes in the oven.
Yeah, we brush it around the crust, and then we do our sauce, cheese, and build it. Goes in, and it comes out. It's got, like a nice browning around it, and it almost tastes like you're always eating a garlic knot at like the end. At the end. And, we're either like loved or hate for it. People will be like, oh yeah, we love it, do extra. Some people will be like, hold the garlic. You
get people that say, don't put the garlic sauce on.
We do get some, sometimes.
I could never say that.
Yeah, like some people that, had never come to us and it's the first time, it could throw them off like, oh, what was that? But, that makes us stand out, amongst the other places. People definitely, when you see that or taste that, you're like, that's from Romo's, because you kind of know. But,
is there anybody up there that's now kind of copying you, so that sometimes it starts with one style, and then it becomes the regional
the
style?
Garlic crust, there's been a few places that have been like, let's do that. So you see it and you're like, oh, they're copying what we did.
Yeah.
But it's all fine. It was during...
That's good. That's flattering.
Yeah. It was during COVID where we kind of had to change to what we were doing a little bit, because all the specialty pizzas that I was doing, the Detroits, the grandmas, the deep dishes, the cracker thins, I was only offering them in the restaurant. So you had to come sit down. It was a separate menu.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you had to do it. And it was more because the volume that we were doing on our takeout was so much. I was just like, these are more tedious. They take longer. Like, we won't be able to push them out as much. Like, people are going to, drive themselves into the ground.
You up.
So we're like, we're going to put them in the restaurant only. We're only going to do a limited amount. And when we're out, we're out. That's how we were doing it. And then when COVID hit and we realized like everything was changing, we were like, well, we don't want to lose what we were doing in the dining room, so let's offer it to go now, because we want people to come.
That's all you were doing. So
in our area, a lot of people were doing, they were creating like Facebook pages for businesses, like just to, hey, support these guys, share your specials on these. And that's when, I would post a picture of a Detroit pizza and they'd be like, what is that? And, then the next week it was the deep dish and then the grandma. And they're like, what are these guys doing over here? And then, a year later, the place across the street all of a sudden is doing a Detroit style pizza. Down the town is doing, a grandma or something like that. So, other people definitely took notice. And, I'm not a big, bragger. I don't, even when I like win here, like I'll post one time, like on the business page and on my personal, like, hey, I did this, and that's it. I don't like to drive it into the ground, but
that's not why you're in it. You're not in it for that.
So I mean, you see, other people doing it now, and you see that they take notice and that you're doing something right.
Well, that's the first step. Then when they don't win, then they have to ask themselves, what is he doing that I'm not doing?
Right.
And one of it is he went to damn school for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
He paid his dues.
Yeah.
So, well, Anthony, congratulations on all your success. I'll be taking note tomorrow when they announce the winners, and hope you do well.
Yeah, hopefully my name will get called in one of them or both.
But did I understand you correctly in saying that you do all these different styles at Romo's? You do the Detroit, the Sicilian, the Grandma, so someone can get many styles. And a thin crust like a bar style pizza.
Yeah, we do that as well.
That's ambitious to do all those styles.
Yeah, well, it was
of course,
one
you
of those.
Studied with Tony.
It was one of those things where I was like, "Wow, this guy's pulling it off.
Yeah.
How can I be different in my area?
Yeah.
Let's try to do that," and it worked.
So, 14 years down, you went into what you thought was an easy business, and you made it more difficult by adding all these components. But any regrets?
No regrets. I mean, it's a learning process. Everything you do is, you learn. When we started putting all these styles of pizza on the menu, we're like, okay, well, it's great. We got to get some more help now because we want to be able to keep up with it. I'm like my own biggest critic. Like, I could have a pizza come out and I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And that person will walk out, that was the best pizza I ever ate. And I'm like, okay, but it's one of those things.
All you can say is thank you.
Yeah. So it's just, I'm always working. I'm always trying to improve. That style of pizza that I talked about, that like New Haven, New York style. I'm opening a restaurant next year solely for that style of pizza. It's something that I really, really like, really passionate about. I think it's the best one that I do out of all of them.
What do you call it on the menu? What is that called?
I just call it a New Haven style, because it's easy for people.
Because people can get their head around it. Yeah.
When I talk about it, I say it's kind of a hybrid. Like I feel like I kind of like created something, but I just haven't figured out a name to call it yet.
Are you doing a white clam version of that?
I've done the white clam. It was funny, I did it as a special and people loved it. And then I permanently put it on the menu and I wasn't selling them as much. And I was only using the fresh clams. So I'm like, I can't keep throwing these things out.
That's a lot of work,
So I'm like, we just have to take it off and I'll run it as a special here and there just so I know I'm going to sell them and I don't have to waste anything.
Sometimes by keeping it, infrequent to make the demand goes even higher. But still, when you say New Haven, of course, a lot of people immediately leap to the white clam pizza.
Yeah. That's the number one. That's what everybody thinks of when they think of that.
Well, the next time I'm in Albany, and I have friends who live down in Cooperstown, so that's not too far.
Not too bad.
So when I go up to visit them, I'm going to say, let's take a ride up to Albany.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
And I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
Look forward to it. And
definitely.
And continuing to sort of follow your career.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you've got a few more competitions ahead of you in the next few years.
Yeah. I'm definitely, you'll see me.
You haven't burned out on that.
No. You'll see me in Vegas again and, possibly Parma or Naples next year.
Well, what a great way to see the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I did an interview recently with somebody, and I'm like, pizza gave me a life that I never would have had if it wasn't for it. I was able to build things for myself, other family members that work for me, for my kids, and I just, without pizza, like half the things I've done in my life, I wouldn't have been able to do.
I think there's a lot of people in this hall today who would echo that.
Yeah,
because it really has. It's been a door opener for so many people.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Best of success. Anthony Berghela from Romo's Pizza in Albany. Is it technically in Albany?
It's Glenmont, but it's literally right outside of Albany.
Okay, so if you're in that area, check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah.
And if you are a regular, let them know you heard about it.
Thank you.
Here on Pizza Quest. And thank all of you for listening to another episode of Pizza Quest. Join us next week for yet another episode, and we'll probably be with another person, one of the pizza luminaries here at the Northeast Pizza and Pasta and Artisan Baking Expo in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Anthony.
Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.